Let me ask you something. Would you trust a stranger with your house keys? Of course not. Because trust isn't given, it's built. And it's built through one thing above everything else, and that is knowing someone. Now, here's where it gets interesting. We've spent this entire series talking about how true clarity is in trusting the nature of who God is. But no one ever stops to ask the question underneath this statement. How do you actually get to know God? Stay with me today because this is where everything we've been talking about comes together. Welcome back to another Mindset Method. This is just a time and a space where I come to share a few words that I hope help impact someone on their journey through fitness or their journey through life. I'm Coach Dad, and today we're going to be closing out our series on clarity. So we started this series in Habakkuk 2:2, where God told Habakkuk to write the vision, make it plain so that he may run. And so we got we pulled from this that clarity produces speed. Then we went a little bit deeper and we saw that Habakkuk's real clarity didn't come from a detailed plan, but it came from the revelation of who God is, right? Habakkuk stood on the ramparts. He stayed in conversation with God and walked away, not with a roadmap, but with a posture. And he understood that the righteous shall live by faith. And we ended there with the idea that true clarity is in trusting the nature of God. But today I want to answer the question that's been sitting underneath this whole entire series. How do you develop trust in God? Because trust without a foundation isn't faith. It's just wishful thinking. And God never asked us for wishful thinking, right? He gave us something much more solid to stand on. So let's get into it. So I got 3 points that I want to share with you today. Point number 1 is you can't trust who you don't know. So trust is the byproduct of revelation. Think about some of your closest relationships, your best friend, your spouse, your sisters, brothers, right? A mentor, someone who's like changed your life. You didn't trust them to begin with. You didn't trust them on day one. You trusted them because over time they showed you who they truly were. They told you things, they kept their word, they showed up when things mattered. They were consistent enough that your heart eventually said, you know what? I know this person. I can trust them. Trust is always the byproduct of revelation. You cannot trust what has not been revealed to you, right? Here's the thing. A lot of people's relationship with God is a bit jaded, or is people can't really understand the relationship that they need with God because they're trying to trust someone that they don't know. They know about God the same way they know about a celebrity, right? You've heard the name, you've seen the highlights, but you've never actually sat down and got to know them yourself. And so this produces a shaky faith. When things get hard, you wonder why you don't feel as grounded as others who claim to trust and believe in this same God. Well, that's because your relationship with God is personable. You have to develop your own relationship with God so that you truly understand and trust him for yourself, right? Trying to trust a God you don't know is like trying to do a max squat the first day you walk into the gym. Your foundation isn't there yet. You haven't built up to it. When you're squatting and you're going up for a max weight, you build up to that max weight. You don't just pile on max weight immediately. And the same is in your relationship with God. You have to build up to this full trusting relationship with God, right? Trust in God works exactly the same way every human relationship works. It deepens as he reveals himself to you and as you receive the revelation that he has given, right? So then the question becomes, how has God revealed himself? And there are 3 ways, and all 3 of these are available to you right now. Point number 2, the 3 ways that God has revealed himself to us. So he showed us, he told us, then he walked right up to our door and stood right there and said, here I am. Right? So the first way was in scripture. He told us. God has been revealing his character through the written word for thousands of years, right? When he provides manna in the wilderness, he's revealing that he sustains his people. Every story in scripture is essentially God saying, here's who I am and watch how I move. When he parts the Red Sea, he's revealing that he makes a way even when there's no way. Because that is a revelation of who God is. Him splitting the Red Sea isn't saying that he made a way for the Israelites, right? That's not the revelation that he wanted us to receive. He wanted us to receive the revelation that he is a way maker. When he restores Job, he's revealing that he wastes nothing, not even suffering, right? Scripture isn't just a history book. It's a character profile. It's God's way of handing you his resume and saying, check my track record. Just look at what I've done. I've shown you who I am and what I've done. Just check me out. Look at my resume. If you want to know who I am, check me out. I put it all in my word. Right? Psalms 46:10 says, be still and know that I am God. That word know in Hebrew is yada. It means intimate. It means an experiential knowledge, not an intellectual awareness of who God is. God isn't just saying know about me. He's saying know me. Be in relationship with me. Understand how I speak. Understand how I feel. Understand the way that I think. Come into a intimate relationship with me. And that knowing starts in his word. The second way, through creation. Romans 1:20 tells us that God's invisible qualities, his eternal power, his divine nature have clearly been seen through what he has made. Creation is God's outdoor gallery. Every sunrise is a brushstroke. Every ecosystem is a sermon. Think about it like this. A seed gets buried in the ground. It appears dead, and then it produces life. That's not biology. That's God showing you his resurrection principle in real time. He built the pattern of death and rebirth into the very soil beneath your feet, so you never have an excuse to doubt that he can bring things back to life. When you understand that God wove his character into the fabric of his creation, nature stops being just a background scenery and it starts being a daily revelation of who God is. Then the third way, through the person of Jesus. And this is the most personal and the most powerful one for us here. Hebrews 1:3 says, Jesus is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his being. John 1:14 says the word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. In other words, if you want to know what God is like, look at Jesus. God didn't just send a memo. He showed up in a person. Jesus touched lepers nobody else would touch, revealing that God moves towards people everyone else moves away from. He wept at Lazarus' tomb, revealing that God is moved by your grief. He fed thousands with almost nothing, revealing that God specializes in doing more with less. Jesus is the clearest and most complete revelation of God's character that has ever existed. He is God saying, I know you needed to see it to believe it, and so I came. And then point number 3, actually receiving the revelation. So knowing about God and knowing God are two very different things. Here's where I want to be really practical with you. Revelation has two sides to it. You have God's side, he reveals, and then our side, when we receive. A lot of people are living in a house where God has been knocking for years. The door just has not been open. Not because God stopped revealing himself, but because life sometimes gets too loud. Schedules get full, and that still small voice gets drowned out by all the noise. You can own every book a person has ever written and still not know anything about them. You can follow someone's entire social media presence and still be a stranger to them. Because information alone is not intimacy. And this same truth is found in our relationship with God. You can know every verse, you can attend every service, and still not know him. Because knowing God requires what every real relationship requires. That's time, attention, and honest engagement. This is why Habakkuk's posture matters so much to us. He didn't just know about God. He talked to him. He wrestled with him. He stationed himself and he waited for him. And because he did, he received a revelation that transformed his complaint into worship. That transformation is available to all of us, but it starts with receiving what God has already been revealing to us. He has already showed us who it is. It's up to us to receive that revelation. So I want to give you a few practical steps to help you receive the revelation of God. Step number 1, read scripture looking for character, not just instruction. Instead of asking, what does this mean for my life? Ask, what does this tell me about who God is? Let the Bible introduce you to God rather than you introducing yourself to the Bible, right? Introducing your own interpretation to the Bible, right? Let it be a conversation with God that where you allow him to introduce himself to you. And number 2, pay attention to creation intentionally. Really pay attention to the flowers, the trees, the birds, the sun, the stars, right? Take a walk without your headphones. Sit outside in the morning and let God remind you of what God is like. Let the seed in the ground preach to you about the resurrection. Let the consistency of the sunrise remind you that his mercies really are renewing every morning. You get new mercies every day. God shows up every day. The sun rises and sets every single day. That is a consistent God. And he has revealed to us through creation that he stays consistent. The seasons continuously change, right? The sun continuously rises. God doesn't change. And he has revealed to us his unchanging nature in his creation. And then number 3, spend time with Jesus in the Gospels. Read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and really take your time to interpret and understand how Jesus interacts with people. Notice the people that he moved towards. Pay attention to the things that move him, because Jesus is God. Jesus is God in a person. And the more you know Jesus, the more you trust the God that he represents. So let me bring this whole series back home. We started with a simple idea. Clarity produces speed. Write the vision, make it plain, and then run. But then we discovered that Habakkuk's clarity didn't come from a plan. It came from a posture. From him staying in conversation and him stationing himself on the ramparts, refusing to walk away without an answer. Then we arrive here today at the deepest truth of this entire series. True clarity is not knowing your next step. True clarity is knowing the God who orders your steps. When you know that he is good, you don't panic when things go wrong. When you know that he is just, you don't have to fight every battle yourself. When you know that he is faithful, you don't have all the answers. You don't need all the answers because you trust the one who does. Clarity isn't a GPS that shows you every turn. It's knowing the driver well enough to trust and to rest in that passenger seat while he takes the wheel. Habakkuk ended chapter 3 with the fig tree bare. The field's empty, the circumstances unchanged, and still said, yet I will rejoice. That yet wasn't blind optimism. It was the overflow of a man who had gotten to know God well enough to trust him even in the dark times. And that's available to you. Not someday, but right now. Start the conversation. Open up the word. Step outside and let the God's creation preach to you. Spend time with Jesus. Receive what God has already been revealing about himself. Because the more you know him, the less you need everything else figured out. And that is the clearest that you will ever be. Before you go, I want to ask you one question to close this series out. What has God revealed about his character that you need to lean into right now? I want you to drop that into the comments, because this community is a safe place, right, where we help and encourage each other on this journey. If this series has added value to your life, I want you to share it with someone who needs clarity right now. Every share puts this video in front of someone who might need it. If you haven't subscribed already, I want you to subscribe. I drop a video here every week on Mindset Methods. I'm Coach Dan, And remember, your mindset is your greatest asset. I see y'all next week.